Thank you both for taking the time to do this. So much to talk about and so little time to talk about it in. But I have to start with defense and what we've been watching over the last 5 days in the Middle East. We've all kind of seen the technology in action if we've turned on our TVs. And in some ways, it's really impressive, right? We're taking out various incoming missiles, drones, whatever. In some ways, it seems like a bad mismatch. We're throwing $1 million cruise missiles at $20,000 drones. Kevin, I wonder what you make of this demonstration of American military might that we've seen over the last 5 days, and what does it tell us about what we have to do?
First of all, thanks for having me back. There's a lot of things we need to do, but it's not just what we're seeing right now. When you really want to look to AI, you should look what happened in Venezuela. In less than 5 minutes, Americans came in a helicopter. They didn't land at a house, they landed in a military base. And he was protected by Cubans. And they picked him up in his room in less than 5 minutes where he couldn't even get to his safe room. We're transforming our military. And normally what you do, you build a military for the battle you already fought. And if you really think about this, it's fundamentally different going forward. A AI pilot is better than a 30-year pilot because they don't have to worry about G-forces. You don't want to spend a $20 million missile knocking down a $10 drone. You're going to see a pilot in the air in the future and 1,000 drones. It's who can overwhelm the next person. And if you look to, we have in this new administration applied AI to complement what is going on. We could not have done Venezuela without AI. We could not be doing what we're doing right now without AI, just the coordination, the supply chain, how you're going in. It is transforming it, but we have so much further to go.
And are we moving fast enough, and are we keeping up with the competition? And I don't know, the competition is probably not Iran as much as it's China, but.
Are we keeping up fast enough? No, because we're a little older, so when we spend a lot of money, we build it on an old platform instead of everything China's doing on a new platform. But I will tell you this, I'm sitting with one individual in the room right here, AI applying to shipbuilding. China can build a lot of ships. We've got to get better on how we're doing it, and we're doing that. It's a whole transformation over at the Pentagon of where we're going. So we're trying to take the Silicon Valley and apply it to the Pentagon. If you look at the Andurils, you look at the other, I just started a new defense company, same type of thing. So how can you make them faster? There's this one in LA, we just did the Reagan Forum, where he can 3D print what would take us 17 months in 3 weeks. For weapons, and it'll cost you less.
When we were on the stage last year, and I'll get to you, Clark, I have a lot of questions, but when we were on the stage last year, you talked about one of the big problems was just the massive constraints put on the acquisition process by Congress. Does that still exist? Are we making any progress on that? Can we do what we need to do to take advantage of this
it still exists, but Congress has ignored Article 1, so they really kind of don't matter right now. So when you look at, not to advertise, but we haven't seen an administration like this since Roosevelt. Somebody who's politically powerful, their party controls the House and the Senate, and had already done the job, only the second time in history in America have someone done the job, gone out and come back, so they have the 10,000 hours, they thought about it. And then you had a much different world where you're coming out of COVID, something like that only happens once a century, and those who are in democracy lose because she or he hasn't done something wrong, it's so life-changing. Authoritarian stay, we haven't had this axis of evil, these new crinks than before. So by having that, we're far behind on critical minerals. He could say, I'm just gonna change it, MP3, right? And so if you think that's a bad thing, it's actually the timing of where we are. In this case, it's a
good thing. I mean, there may be other effects of that.
It's going to move us in 3 years to a place, if we waited for, regardless of who's in power, the House or Senate to act, to get us in critical minerals, will be 20 years.
Yeah, fascinating. Really good point. Clark, the Department of HHS is so huge. I mean, how much money does the department spend every year?
I would say I'm just trying to get to the bottom of how much is spent on IT alone. I would say total outlays, few people realize that HHS is sending much more money out the door every year than the Department of War. It is the biggest spender of money throughout the entire federal government. If you look at just the IT spend alone, I think the conservative estimate is something like $14 billion a year.
$14 billion on IT alone.
On strict IT. And when you look deeper at that, it begins to go much, I think it's actually much higher than that. It's to the point where it's bigger than the budget of the majority of states in the union.
Yeah.
So most governors are working with a smaller budget than just the IT budget of HHS. It is a massive and sprawling organization.
Yeah, so huge, massive. What can AI do to make it more efficient and effective?
Yeah, I think that HHS itself, it is probably good to set a bit of background in that it is a conglomerate agency and it touches the American public in so many different ways. You have it's a regulator, so the regulatory side. HHS does drug approvals, and there's massive potential there for using AI to help speed up reviews and approvals of new drugs.
Is that starting to happen?
That is starting to happen, and that's underway right now. FDA is making great progress there. HHS also sets health information standards and helps regulate a lot of those areas. So there's huge potential for using AI in clinical care and in hospital operations and things like that. Many people don't know that HHS runs the Indian Health Service, which operates a large number of hospitals throughout the country. We also oversee HIPAA, and HIPAA and the whole regulatory apparatus around that is traditionally seen as a huge barrier to adoption of technology in this space. But beyond that, there's the grant-making functions that HHS has, and using AI to help weed out fraud, waste, and abuse and ensure that grant dollars are being spent appropriately is another huge function. And then there's just the scientific aspect, like over at NIH.
Yeah.
Not just funding research, but also producing science and using AI to help come up with novel research ideas, to better review data. We have a big focus on reproducibility.
So there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
Kevin, can you give some examples outside of HHS?
Oh, AI is transforming inside government itself. I mean, just how small when he brings it into FDA. Instead of going and studying for drugs for years, you can use the AI to pinpoint it, and it speeds it up because we're losing to China in that element in a lot of places. We spend a lot of money on software, and all of it's stovepiped and don't talk to each other. So just when you bring one in, the utilization to be able to go. In the defense world, predetermining instead of half our airplane sitting out because some part is broken and you can't fly it in a time of need, predetermining that part's going to break, we're going to change it before it's a problem. We're watching it on almost every step where we go, and now analyzation of making it happen. I will tell you this, whoever captures AI and quantum will have the advantage. And if you look at it from a world point of view, China is in a real battle with us. And they have an advantage because with AI, when it starts out, especially with the large language models, data matters. Do they have more? We use HIPAA, so they're freer with their information as well. We protect ours in the analyzing of it. But she is going to protect it and not let it go free so much because afraid of overtaking. Europe's going to overregulate it, and America's the Wild West. We're capitalists, so we're going to fund things that others may not be more finite. But I will make these couple predictions. If you look at AI 6 months ago and where it is today, fundamentally different. If you have not embraced AI within the next year, you're going to be very far behind in your industry. And you might not catch up because those who embrace it are constantly improving. We are going to see, if you are a public company, we will see the market punish your stock based upon how you applied AI and what they're going to start looking at. From a policymaker's point of view, the workforce is going to change. I was just sitting in Silicon Valley. I took 4 senators up there. I had 10 of the top people. They sit down with their own programmers and say, don't hire any more programmers, right? So there's going to be this transformation. And if your company's not utilizing it, you're going to be punished because you didn't embrace it, and the others are going to catch ahead. Yep. And the thing you have to understand with AI, it's the constant improvement that every single day you'll get better. And what you think about it now, you haven't imagined it. When you bring it in, it'll imagine the things that you haven't thought of.
I want to come back to that, particularly the impact on the workforce. But Clark, I want to ask you, I've spent a lot of time in the last year talking to various CEOs about their AI journeys. Many of the conversations off the record, trying to find out what's going well, what's not going well. A lot of roundtable conversations with maybe a dozen CEOs at a time. And what I've found is really interesting is that there's a pattern in all of these conversations. You start by talking about technology, but within about 15 minutes, you look around the table and realize we're not talking about technology anymore. The technology's great, it's taking care of itself. We're talking about culture, we're talking about people, we're talking about institutions. I spent half of my career in Washington covering the federal government, understand the civil service rules. The problems that these companies have with their workforces has got to be multiplied many times over with the federal government workforce. So how does someone in your position create a culture at HHS that can really take advantage of these incredible possibilities that you two have laid out?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I will say that I came from the private sector and have been in government a little over a year now. And I would say the degree to which I would describe many of the workflows as literal paper pushing, of sending around memos for circulation and things like that pervades every single aspect of the department. It was very, very surprising to me. But I think that's also an enormous opportunity for basic AI workflows to help automate a lot of those reviews and things like that and just kind of get the engine of the department running. And we've already started to do that throughout many different workflows on the legal side, on the procurement side, just contract reviews, that type of thing. Just having policies in place that ask people to always run all of their documentation through AI with set prompts in order to get feedback. Because the reality is that there's a lot of people out there that talk about worrying about AI making mistakes or hallucinating or something like that. It's like we're comparing to the alternative of people simply just clicking yes or signing the name, right? They get a stack of documents and sign them through.
You're trying to change culture.
Yes.
That's a hard thing to do. Do you feel like you're making some progress?
We are making progress there, and I think another really important bit of this is kind of what OPM is doing. So OPM is the Office of Personnel Management, and it's led by Scott Cooper, and he's launched this program that's called the Tech Force. So one of our big initiatives is bringing more tech people into government to help change with the culture. And I think one of the key insights that he had is that when he was talking to a lot of people about why they chose federal service, is that people just wanted a stable job for their entire career. And that's kind of the mindset that gets people into, they sign up for their job, they don't expect it to change.
Well, it's not only at that level, and this is a question I'd like to ask you, Kevin, it's also at the top. I mean, this kind of work is like, was it Sisyphus who was pushing the rock up the mountain? I mean, this is hard stuff, and I've had explicit conversations. Jim Baker, when he was Secretary of State, said, I'm only here for 3 years. I'm not going to spend any time on improving management. I got my 3 policy things I'm going to focus on, and it's going to be a mess when I leave, just as it was when I got here.
Structure dictates behavior. And you got a structure of government that doesn't reward innovation. It's a time that changes all the time. So this is a cultural change, but I think you've seen within politics itself, it's kind of a fundamental change. Just the timing of where we're serving now and the openness to it. I passed the bill, it was the last bill Obama signed right when Trump was being sworn in the first time. He literally signed it walking down to the inaugural, was to create like a Peace Corps for technology. That companies, instead of government saying, oh, you're going to get some benefit if you give us some really smart person to come and work. These people already working in government, they need new, fresh ideas. They need people who come in from the real world sector to help them. And most people want to help help America.
And maybe, Clark, this is where Elon Musk waving his chainsaw at the beginning of the year, while it kind of ultimately blew up, has had an effect. It's like people realize, hey, this is a different thing than we've had in the past. And the old rules don't apply anymore, and we have to act differently. I mean, you've seen that happen at HHS?
Yeah, I think the makeup of people that have gone into the government in the past year is like fundamentally changed from how it's been in past administrations.
Well, did you ever think you'd go in government?
No.
How many companies have you created?
I spent all my career in Silicon Valley in the private sector.
Did you pick up a paper and say I want to go to government, or somebody called?
I got a phone call, and it was basically like, we need your skill set in the government. We have no idea what you're going to do. We don't even know if you're going to get paid. But can you pick up and move to Washington, D.C. next week?
That didn't happen in the past.
Yeah, that didn't happen in the past.
But that's rewarding, and that's what we're looking for. That's changing the structure of government. It won't happen overnight, but it's the embracing, and we're thankful that people are willing to serve like that.
Yeah. Kevin, there's this fight going on between the Department of War and Anthropic, where Anthropic says, hey, we as a company have these values. We don't want our technology to be used this way. And the Department of War is saying, well, we're the US government. You're not going to tell us how we can and can't use your technology. Is that a productive fight? What's the right answer there? How should we expect that to play out?
We're going to have this fight with AI, but I don't think this is a fight that's going to blow everybody up. I think what happens in politics, sometimes politics gets played. If someone is playing it on the outside while you're negotiating, they're trying to get an advantage over somebody else in the negotiations. Look, there's a lot of great companies out there. Gemini is pretty impressive what it's doing right now, and we're using it as we talk. And the president has given them so much time to work it out. I think from a government and from somebody who was a policymaker, I love technology, but I always want a human to back it up. That's why we have somebody walk around with a football with the president.
So you're in favor of what Anthropic is saying?
Well, I don't think the Department of War is saying something different. I think it's just a negotiation. I think at the end of the day, the Department of War doesn't want to turn everything over. What was that old movie where at the end it said TikTok? What was it? War Games? Where they turned it over to the machine? I think at the end of the day, we want some protection.
Because at the end of the day, the Department of War wants access to the best models out there. Yeah, and at the end of the day, Anthropic can't really survive if it's cut off from anybody who does business with the government.
No, and we don't want... There was a time of so many years back that these companies didn't want to work with America and didn't want to work with our Department of Defense. We wanted to. Because what we need is, for our war fighters, instead of them making all the decisions, what they need to have happen is, with AI, they can analyze the playing field. They could come in and they can give you 3 options. And then that person can make that decision based upon where they are. So you don't want to turn everything over just to a computer. You want to make analysis for you, and then you make the decision. And I think that's really what the Department of War is saying as well. But when you go to the Department of War, they want to determine everything.
They want to win. That's okay.
Yeah, and
that's the only Department of War I want. I don't want one that wants to play
that wants to lose.
I think this conversation's also shifted, like you mentioned, this has happened before. There, the Project Maven. There was a time not even very long ago where
Project Maven was not brought in until we had the second wave in Iraq.
Yeah.
And it was Drew who brought it in, and that was Palantir, and it's fundamental change.
And it was tech companies at that time had blanket policies to not work with, DoD at all.
Google, even though they said do no evil, when they wouldn't work with us. But that's not C3 AI. They've always been an American company.
We can talk about C3 AI if you'd like to.
I'd love to.
It's obviously getting in deeper partnerships with government. What's the value there?
But you know what? So C3 AI, created by Tom, who to me is an American hero. He's exceptional. He came in because of his mindset. I remember when I was in office, I'd bring him in, I'd bring these members around, and we'd talk about problems, and he'd start We got a solution.
We can do this. We can do
That's how we like people to be brought in. And the platform that he has made is not just the Department of War, but it's every element in government to be more efficient and effective. And what that does, that saves the taxpayer a great deal of money, but it also provides the constituent a better service.
Yeah. So Clark, healthcare is such a huge touch point with the lives of so many Americans. I mean,
It's 20% of our entire economy.
Medicare and Medicaid is a third of the population that you cover.
Yeah.
So make this a little more real for us. How is, I think we can all agree, we don't have a very effective or efficient healthcare system right now. We're spending a ton of money and we're not getting the results we deserve for half that amount of money. So spin this out for us a little bit. How is this going to make my health care as a Medicare recipient or a Medicaid recipient better?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of work that is ongoing right now on, the policy side, working on the incentive structures for, payment and reimbursement and things like that, in order to ensure that people do have incentives and people are integrating the latest AI tools and stuff into clinical settings and things like that. I would say that the way that we're partnering with C3 is on kind of further up the pipeline on the research side. And I think one of the big initiatives we have there is, like, if you look at the way that the NIH has, traditionally done all of its research, they have 27 institutes and centers, and they're, very, very focused. And they historically kind of rebuild the same thing over and over again, and spend a lot of time in committees for reviewing new proposals for research and things like that. And what we're trying to do with C3 is kind of build a new type of platform that is going to serve as the base for allowing rapid research to be done in the future. And that's ultimately going to, improve.
That's great.
But government has so much data, and we never look at it. What AI is going to allow us to do is look at that data. Look, I lost my mom because she took a medication that one doctor had that didn't talk to the other doctor, and it moved her blood pressure up, and she had brain aneurysm. AI would analyze all that before you go.
No question that's the potential. But I told you I was doing a lot of these Chatham House Rule dinners, roundtables with CEOs. At one of those roundtables, there was the CEO of a large hospital system. I'm not going to mention what it was because I don't want you to go after them. And so I said,
overbilling.
I said, where are you seeing the biggest payoff? Where's the ROI from AI? And you know what they said? You know what they told me the number one ROI that hospital systems are seeing from AI right now? It's from being able to what do you call it? Upcode their Medicare billings. Doesn't do one damn thing to help anybody's health. It just enables them to get more money out of you.
Yeah, if you're an insurance company and you haven't gone into it, you're finding it. Because what they can do, they can analyze the system and say, I pay this code, I don't.
And say, we can call that this.
Those companies that have played into it, but also from the same standpoint, why government has to be in it, government needs to be able to catch that. Did you provide the service? I mean,
so it's like cyber. You're fighting AI with AI.
Yes, I will say that it's the government's ability to detect, catch, and prosecute fraud is actually one of the few times that something is inherently tied to a big technological problem. I would say in the case of CMS, there's a lot of talk about people being stuck on old, Fortran mainframes and COBOL mainframes and things like that. CMS is not just that, it is a federated system of mainframes. So this has made their entire operational model work in such a way that they just pay money out the door and then chase it down later. And it comes months and months later. They don't recover very much of it. No one in private industry works that way. They do things in real time. They are able to adjudicate claims. They're able to use AI to do sophisticated detection of anomalies and things like that. You see this if you travel to another country and you try and make a charge, and then your bank is going to give you a notification or something like that. So that's a project that's actively we're doing right now at CMS, is to modernize that whole system.
That's great.
And think about the money we spent. Have we ever analyzed the grant we gave? Did it achieve what it did? And sometimes they just keep providing it. And so this is the foundation where C3 AI can really, the continual improvement of making the government more efficient.
So the other thing these CEOs say is that they have to have the trust of their employees in order to succeed, in order to buy into the transformation. For government, you have to have the trust of the public, ultimately. And I think there have been a lot of polls that show public trust around issues of AI is strained. So what can you do to actually make that phrase, hey, I'm from the government and I'm here to help,
don't run on that.
have real meaning to the people who you're trying to serve?
Okay, if AI is going to be successful as America, you got to look at the energy policy first, because the data centers. If you notice, people are turning against the data centers because they think it's costing you more in the energy prices. I think what the president did there, say you have to pay for it, it actually will lower the price for in many of these areas. So you've got to build that, because the other fear that people are going to have, it will reshape. This is, we've been through this time before, but it took a longer time frame of changing from a horse and buggy to a car.
Or
this is going to be much
agriculture
faster.
to
Exactly.
manufacturing.
So people are going to depart, but you have policymakers at the same time, and if they're populist, what they're going to do, say, oh, it's kind of like a trade, a trade policy, right? I'm going to pay for people who are off work. Government's also going to start analyzing that we need more trade schools. Yep. We need more electricians and others, and they're going to get paid at a different level.
But we don't really have time to analyze, given how fast this is moving. I mean,
That's a great thing about AI. You don't need to do a 3-year study. Government has so much data now, they can just utilize AI to utilize the data they already have to make your life experience better.
Clark, how are you thinking about the trust problem?
I was going to say, like, when we think about HHS and our AI strategy, basically, is like, our step 1 was like basically legalize AI within the department. Step 2 was focused on really, really rolling out AI tools in the department itself. And I think our phase 3, which we've already started, is really focused on bringing the department's data publicly and bringing it to AI itself. So this is basically a big focus on radical transparency, making things available to the public, making data sets available for AI tools to use, et cetera. Like, if you remember during COVID, there was lots of hand-wringing about the number of deaths and things like that. And a lot of that stemmed from the fact that, CDC is doing their own internal modeling and not sharing all the details and all the underlying data with the public. And that's the type of thing we're going to look to change.
Can I share one story? Tom Siebel came in, and he had a bunch of members talking to him. You know what the members complained about? That they can't respond to their constituents fast enough. Tom leaves, picks up the phone, he goes, I want to help you. He literally took C3 AI, created a program for every member of Congress, so your constituent get all the answer for you. You could respond to them quicker and
faster. Are they
faster.
using?
You would have thought these members thought they landed on the moon.
What a great story.
And it was somebody walked away with doing something.
Fabulous. Okay, I want to ask you both. Cast your view forward 5 years. I don't want to do this by political cycle. Don't give me a political cycle answer. Let's just assume we can keep at this for 5 years. How is government going to be different 5 years from now than it is today, Clark?
I would say that there has been a lot of false starts in adoption of technology throughout the government before. There's a lot of digital transformation. They've been trying to go to the cloud,
yep.
and I think that AI is fundamentally going to be a bit different because it is so generalist. It's able to be adopted with really messy inputs. You just point it at the general situation, the general operations, and it's able to take care of things without, spending years doing your data preparation and your data cleaning and normalization and all that other stuff that had to be done before. You can just kind of point it at the general problem. So I think the adoption of AI throughout even the government, is going to go much quicker than people anticipate.
You're an optimist. Kevin?
I think it's going to go much faster. And I'll give you one example. And you won't think this. Alaska. So the governor of Alaska has really embraced this. He went to C3 AI. Alaska, you're an outdoors person, not a lot of people, right? Government's far away from everything else. All you need is your phone. You need a fishing license, everybody there, boom, you got it. You want to, it goes down to analyzing people who got picked up for marijuana 30 years ago, right? And they need something else. So instead of them going all the way through it, he cares about that. He's a law and order guy, though. Uses C3AI. Here's people you should look at that carried a clean life for the next 30 years.
I greatly...
It will transform it as we know it and will empower the citizen to have a more effective, more efficient, and hopefully a more accountable. And my ultimate goal in 5 years, help us balance the budget, eliminate the waste.
Yeah, it should be more efficient. I greatly look forward to that future. Kevin McCarthy, Clark Minor, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome job.